Today we're going to be talking a lot about oral and written communication. And just in case, I think I recognize most of your names and or faces. My name is Jessica Bali. My background is in teaching high school mathematics up in Northern California. That picture of me there is actually, they're really tiny, but there are some penguins in the background in Antarctica. So we got a trip into Antarctica about a year before the pandemic, which was pretty magical. So happy to think about those cold times and adventures in, as we get into these Southern California summery days, or I guess spring, I don't know. Patrick and Solana, do you guys want to introduce yourselves? Say hi to the people.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It looks like a lot of familiar faces, which I'm happy to see. My background, again, and just in case you're new, is in elementary and middle school. So the picture of me there is from the very last national park that we were able to attend before we had to stop traveling. We have a team spreadsheet where we're trying to get to all of the national parks, and that one is from Cuyahoga National Park in Ohio? In Ohio.
Yep.
But I'm really excited to see you all today. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. So looking forward to getting started.
And I'm Patrick Callahan, and I'm standing by the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa. And my background is at the university level, but I've worked with K-12 schools for many years. And so it's good to see you all back. And like Solana, I'm really excited about this topic as well. So it's good to be here. Thank you.
And if you couldn't tell, we're really excited about traveling. So if that wasn't subtle enough. I also see my friend Sandra. Selamat siang, good to see you. We discovered last time that Sandra is originally from Indonesia, which is where I lived for 18 years. And so we had a nice little chat last time, which was very exciting for me and very confusing for maybe some of the participants seeing me speak in Indonesian. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing for you, Sandra. So see you. Selamat datang, welcome everyone. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. And okay, we're gonna do a virtual Find Somebody Who. You've probably done a version of this in person, but we're gonna go virtual. So, Solana.
All right. So one thing that we were thinking about, I know that many of you are transitioning back to classrooms and everything, but just in the meantime, or perhaps as a fun kind of get to know you as you start the next school year, this is kind of a shared Jamboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to be in groups of 3 or 4. How many do we have? So probably groups of, Jessica's going to put us in some. What you're going to do is on the Jamboard, you're going to look at these sticky notes. And if one of those is true for you, you are going to click on the sticky note and type your name in that square. So for example, if I play a musical instrument, I'm going to click on there, write my name, Solana, and then hit save. And that will put my name on there. And then once the board is done, once everybody has a few minutes to kind of add their things that they know or are able to do, then we're going to color code them by how many people have that thing in common. So for example, if it's just one person, you'll change the sticky note green. If it's 2 people, you'll change it blue. And since this is meant to be a kind of a community building, not only for us as colleagues, but also potentially for your students, feel free to ask questions like, oh my gosh, what instrument do you play, Solana? Or what other country? Or why do you hate tacos? Are you crazy? Or whatever the thing is. So we're going to drop this Jamboard into the chat right now. And
point of clarification, please. So if someone put their name, you can still add your name, right?
Yes.
You just keep adding it. Okay.
So
there can't be just one person that loves the tacos.
No, if there's 4 names on there, then you change that sticky note orange, and we're going to kind of see which things we all have in common, or things like that.
Yeah,
So
don't worry. It's not like, oh, I call dibs on this one. It's like everybody
you
gets
want
a
to see
chance.
how many people speak a second language or how many people. So there's the Jamboard. Go ahead and click on there. Make sure you can get in. And Jessica will push us out. What do we think? 10 minutes? 7? I don't
Yeah,
know how
maybe.
many.
Yeah, I think like
5
6
minutes?
minutes, maybe 5, 6 minutes. Yeah, let me just add that time here. And perfect. I think I'm just going to double check. We've got groups of 4. So please just navigate to the slide number that matches with your breakout room. And you'll see that in the top left-hand corner of each of the slides. All right, we'll see you back here in about 5 or 6 minutes.
That was so much fun. I'm totally stealing this for the first date on Monday.
Good.
Because we can't be touching each other. They have to have their own little like island with their own, we're not really going to do too much paper and pencil. We're not going to do that so much anymore.
Sure.
Awesome. Yeah, and we wanted to make sure you knew you can just like make a copy of this and delete the names on the first one or whatever. We just thought that might be a fun way to kind of get to know your kids, get to have them get to know each other, even though I know they've been working together all year, but these are some things that you might not know about your friends or classmates. I've learned a lot about.
Haven't turned on their cameras very often, so it's hard to say.
Yeah,
that's true. But I just love to see, like, I think that tacos are usually this like great unifier among the people. I mean, a lot of people like tacos. I'm kind of surprised that with 16 or 17 of us, I am the only one that hates cilantro. That's shocking. But I just have some strong feelings. So maybe
I put it on my tacos. Come on.
See, I like tacos without the cilantro. And Sandra, it probably would have been in this moment that we would have found each other and found our Indonesian connection. But yeah, it's so fun to see that we have some folks who can do cartwheels and folks who root for sports teams outside of California, and some of us even like people who have taught other subjects besides math. I think that's a great strength. And yeah, this was just really fun to see some of the similarities between us in this group. So thank you so much for doing that. And I'm going to turn it over to Solana.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm going to go ahead and share screen and just give you one more reminder to, if you have not signed in. Oh, Jessica, I can't share my screen.
Try it now. I just did it, but you might have beat me to it.
There we go. All right. So if you have not signed in, go ahead and sign in there. I think we've probably got everybody at this point. What I'm going to do is just go through a quick kind of overview, just a reminder of where we are in terms of this whole series. Hopefully, I think most of you were with us for the first 2, but if you weren't, we had one focused on student engagement, then one about problem solving and sense making. This one's going to focus on written and oral communication in math class. And then our final one will actually be looking at some student work and how students are writing and saying mathematical explanations. We'll talk about the dates on that one in just a minute. What we wanted to do, this is in the minute right now, is offer you a option for that 4th session. We know we've been running these from 2:45 to 5, and that will now fall when you guys go back to school in the contract hours or in your teaching day still. So we wanted to offer these 2 options for that final session in May, on May 6th. Either we can start the meeting a little bit later and do it from 3:30 to 5:45, which might put you in some traffic on the way home. Or if you guys all want to just join us on the Saturday session from 9 to 11:15, we could do that as well. And there's also some flexibility if you wanted to stay on May 6th, maybe we could even do it later. So we just, since this is a pretty small group, we just kind of wanted to take a little vote. Or Jessica, how did we want to kind of source this?
I'm just wondering, like, as Solana mentioned, I mean, Feroza reached out to us and said that we needed to adjust the time for May 6th because that 2:45 start time did fall within your teaching hours. And so we needed to start at 3:30. But we do want to be sensitive if that is just like a horrific start time, but we're also trying to be mindful of the end time too. So that was sort of where we landed, is what we thought would be the best possible scenario. You don't have to commit in this moment. Like, I will be there for, May 6th at 3:30, or I will be there on Saturday. But is there anybody here that like neither of those are doable? Maybe that's useful information.
I think 4:00 start would be better for.
Yeah, I was going to say that 4 to 6, so we could actually get home. Everybody gets home and settled in a little bit.
Okay.
And we can just take the class from home.
Okay. Yeah, that was another option that Feroza mentioned, is like pushing it out a little bit further so that people could get home. Would 4:00 start time work for folks, as Kathleen and Gloria have mentioned? This is so hard. Like, we want to accommodate everybody.
It'll be a rush, but I can make 4. I mean, I'd rather start sooner than go later.
Sure.
Okay. Well, and there's always something kind of fun at the start, but we always record the sessions and we'll have access to them. So if you miss the very beginning too, it'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So
would it be possible to get the sign in again in the chat window? I apologize.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
So I think what we're hearing is May 6th at 4 or Saturday on the 8:00.
No, 9:00.
I'm sorry. May 8th at 9. I'm just mixing all of it together.
All right. We can definitely do that. Sorry,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I personally am unlikely to make it on a Saturday because I've literally been, I mean, if you think about how many of these trainings, I've literally been to over 8 hours of these trainings in 1 week now.
Yes.
And my weekends need to be kind of like sacrosanct. So I would be unlikely to make them, but I support what other people want.
Yeah, no problem. That's why we offer one in the week and one on the weekends. So whatever one fits better for you. And if you're a little bit late, that's okay too.
Oh, so you're saying you're actually, on Thursday and Saturday would be offered twice?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Every one of these sessions, we offer them twice. We were just going to say, if no one wants to come on Saturday because it was too early or something, that we would, if no one wanted to come on Thursday, we would just have them join us on our Saturday. But you're welcome to choose either one.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll be there talking about math explanations no matter what. All right, so we'll send out a reminder about that and let Feroza know that we're going to go with May 6th at 4 or the Saturday session. And you guys don't have to decide now. You can choose which one you want, but we're looking forward to seeing you either way.
And is that the last one?
Yeah.
Oh, how sad.
No, this is the third of 4. So Charles, have you been with us before?
I'm not sure I've been with this group because somehow it didn't pass through. I would have been happy to join it. Maybe I've gone to previous ones, but not lately.
Yeah, you would know because we do a lot of really fun stuff.
I can't
but welcome anyway. I'm Solana. This is Jessica. Got Patrick here. We've got a really fun team. I'm just going to go ahead and do some reminders about just kind of what this session is. They're always, well, never mind. There's a time one, but they're usually always from 2:45 to 5. We always have this same Zoom link. We always share all the resources and slides, so no need to take notes. And we always center them around a particular problem of practice. As we mentioned, this one is going to be about oral and written communication. Here's our quick agenda. We did our little community building activity, which we always start off with. And we welcome you, like Gloria said, to make a copy of that and use that with your kids as soon as you want. We're going to start with a little check-in just about this, similar to we did last time, about just kind of what you tried from the last session. We're going to talk about some spoken communication activities. We're going to do some work with a math language routine number 1 and some Vanguard problems, which is a stronger and clearer math language routine. And we're going to do a real fun Desmos activity called Polygraph. We're we're going to give you a 1-question PT to give your students over the next couple weeks so that we have some student work to look at and on the 4th session. And then, as always, we'll have some time built in, about 20-30 minutes for you guys to explore the resources, do some planning, and so you can leave here feeling ready to try something in your classrooms. And just a reminder that we are both teachers. We are here for you. We're going to share a bunch of stuff, and we always start our session by reiterating that, you know, we're going to cast a wide net and share a bunch of resources that we really love, but don't feel the pressure to try everything. Pick something that you like, whatever speaks to you. And we are always here to support you. We'll talk about a little bit later that we'll have an office hours, a check-in date in between these two before the May 6th session if you have any questions about how something runs or anything. So just wanted to let you know that. As we did last time, we just want to do a quick check-in with your colleagues. This will be kind of fast, but what we wanted to do was give you a chance to share with each other about something that you might have tried. So in your breakout room, we're going to have you on a Jamboard kind of say either something that you tried, something that you're feeling good about, something that you maybe have questions about or that you're wondering about. There's a little reminder there of what we went over last time. We did 3 math tasks. We did 3 reads. A lot of you guys were excited about trying that. So I'm interested to see how those have gone. Jessica went over some open middle problems, and we did some work on a shared Google slide and a Jamboard. So if any of those things are things you've tried and you want to talk about it with your colleagues, that would be great. So we're just going to do this pretty quickly, but Jessica's going to drop a chat or a Jamboard in the chat and push you into some breakout rooms. So just feel free to share what's something that you liked that you tried, or maybe something that, you know, was challenging. And we'll come back together in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, and I'm just adding little stickies. There are 5 breakout rooms, so I am going to just ask that you navigate to the slide that corresponds, and I'm just adding a sticky for each of those. So we'll open it up. We'll see you back here in about 6 minutes.
All right, well, thanks I hope you had a chance to check in with your colleagues about something you've tried. There wasn't a ton on that Jamboard, but we assume that you were just chatting with each other about some things you've tried. But something I did see is that people were giving 3 reads a shot, but maybe it didn't go great. If anyone felt compelled that they wanted to share something they tried or that went well or didn't, go ahead and
we're sort of the common denominator in our room is when we did it like with the entire class, it doesn't matter which activity we tried, it didn't go as well. But when we had small group, when we had it pared down to maybe, 8 to 12, then it went really much better. That's the key. Trying to do a bigger group didn't go as successful. There was several non-participants, but everybody, you pace them like on Desmo, you pace them, but they're not answering, right? So it's not as much fun. You're not getting engagement to check on who's doing what, You call their name, they're not quite there. So with less people, it seemed to increase the engagement.
Nice.
Okay. Thanks, Gloria. Anybody else want to share something that they tried? You don't have to. We just like to hear that some of these things have happened in your classrooms if you gave them a shot. Well, feel free to drop it in the chat if you ever want to share with your colleagues something that went well. Danita's going to try again tomorrow. I love it. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the oral communication part of this session. This is something that it's one of my absolute favorite parts. Whoa, why is this way over here? All right. Favorite things to do in a math class. Oh my gosh, all these things are moving around. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Is have kids talk about math, which is something that traditionally in my class didn't happen a lot when I first started teaching. And I wanted to do a quick just kind of overview of the shifts kind of that have happened in math education over the last few years. Traditionally, math class was really focused on speed and accuracy. We did time tests and worksheets, and that's even the way that I learned things. The reason that we did that was because being able to calculate quickly and accurately was necessary in the world back in the day. This is how you used to keep track of your books. So if we were thinking about being good at math, it used to mean being able to calculate and compute accurately. So you had to be able to do it quickly and accurately. But that's not really the case anymore. In those kind of math classes, kids weren't going to talk about anything, because what would you talk about if you're just practicing skills and procedures? You know, you go practice your times tables. Look at this beautiful class. At least there's a flower on the wall. That's nice. But for the most part, the kids are just like practicing their addition or whatever. And, you know, things have changed so much. This is something that I like to share, even though this is kind of a dated graphic. This is from the 500 Fortune 500 most valued skills in the 70s. And if you just notice for a second, the top 3 skills are those like reading, writing, arithmetic, right? The kind of, those were the basic things that we learned about. And even as early as the 90s, the late 90s, those are kind of bumped out of the top 3. Things like communication, interpersonal skills, problem solving, things that we're focusing on in this series in particular were the big ones. And I know you're like, that's a million years ago, late 90s. Come on, Solana, that's not even the same century. Here's from last year. So this is the new list, and you'll see at the very top, communication. Most companies, most careers, everybody wants people who can communicate. And this doesn't just pertain to like these giant corporations. Soft skills, communication is the #1 skill that anybody wants. So it follows that this should be a big component of preparing students for the world. Not only that, it is SMP3. And I really love this quote from the Heinemann blog that says, "I'm increasingly convinced that constructing viable arguments and critiquing the reasoning of others may be the 9 most important words in the entire Common Core." And I totally believe this. I think that it is so important for us to teach the kids the skills and procedures and to have procedural fluency. They need to be able to use the math, but something so important is for them to be able to talk about what they're doing, how they're thinking, how they got an answer, because ultimately there's no job in the world where you just like give an answer and walk away, or like circle a number and say, that's what I got. You have to be able to explain how you got it. And that's what this kind of chunk of the session is going to be today. So why do we ask kids to explain their thinking? Just really quick in the chat or unmute, like why do we care? Why do we ask them as teachers to explain their work? Anybody? You can unmute. We have a small enough group, or you can type it in the chat. I see Danita.
I asked them to explain their thinking so I can follow their train of thought. It helps me gauge like if they are understanding the skill or the concept that's being taught, and then I can look for where like maybe they're veering the wrong way.
Yeah, and people are mentioning that they agree that they're kind of trying to gauge how they understand, maybe find an error in their thinking. So we're interested in teachers in their thought process. Are they making connections? Do they understand the concept? We asked students, why do you think your teacher asks you to explain your thinking? What do you think that they said? What do you think are the top 3 reasons why kids think we ask them to explain?
Because we don't to find out where their mistakes are?
To see if they're listening.
Right.
If they're listening.
Because the teacher doesn't know how to do it and they need the kids' help.
Oh, the teacher might not even know what they're doing.
Just to check in if you're paying attention, if they can catch you paying attention. Were you listening?
Oh, yeah. So they think the teachers are mean. That is one of the top 3. The top 3 reasons why students think we ask them to explain their thinking are to get some credit. Like, oh, maybe I got it wrong, but I showed my work. I don't know. To prove they're not cheating, or that teachers are mean. And they're just mean for making us write in math class. So there's a big disconnect there, right? Between like why we ask, it's so important to us to understand their thinking and why they think we're asking. And one thing that I really like to show students when they're like, Miss Lee, why do I have, or Miss Ray, I'm married now, I forget my name. They're like, why do we have to explain what we're doing all the time? And I like to show them this video. I don't know if you've ever seen it. This is a man explaining to us how to identify an aspen tree. Here we go.
Oh, wow, score. Look at this. This is an aspen. You can tell that it's an aspen tree because of the way it is. Wow.
Okay, so I love to show that to my students because I'm like, that's what you sound like when you explain to me that you got the answer because you did the math or because I'm smart or something. So what I try to push in my classroom is that, can we explain better than this? Can we be a little bit more convincing than this aspen tree guy? Because he's clearly not convincing anyone or making any viable argument for how to identify an aspen tree. So the activities that I'm going to share are super quick little warm-up activities that you can do just to get kids talking, because my feeling is that, and it was certainly true in my classroom, kids just didn't have enough opportunities to communicate in math class. So if we can build some of those things in, and these might be activities you've seen, but here's my two favorite. Number one, math picture talks. You've probably done math number talks or dot talks. These are picture talks, which are my absolute fave. And then which one doesn't belong, which might be familiar to you, but if it's not, oh boy, it's going to be so exciting. Okay, so here they are. And I want to go through these quickly because I want you to see how they could be done in a classroom in your first 5 minutes of class as a warm-up, just to get kids talking in your classroom. So here's a picture, and math picture talks are essentially what they sound like. I'm going to show you a picture that might have some interesting mathematical numbers associated with it. And here, there's two ways that you can do this. The first is come up with a number or a fraction or a percentage that could somehow represent this picture, and see if your partner or the rest of the class can figure out what it is. I will do the example. So if you saw this picture, here's my number. Can anyone figure out what I'm talking about based on this picture talk or this picture? Ooh, ratio of cats to dogs. Percentage of cats. I wonder if it's true. Although 2, 4, 6, 8. Kathy, you want to tell me why you think percentage of cats?
After I looked at it, because I had something blocking the picture, I don't think it's 71% cats, but maybe it has to do with the color. How many have black or gray? That might work.
Right. More cats than dogs, so their percentage would be higher. That's a great.
Or the amount of animals on the couch.
Ooh, who said that?
Me, Kathy.
Kathy. That is it. The percentage of animals that is on the couch. But basically, you can have kids come up with a number. You can come up with a number. We can check that. We can fact check. Okay, let's see. How many total animals are there? How many are on the couch? We can check those. So that's one way you can use a math talk or a picture talk. There's tons of them out there, and I'm going to share a link with you guys later for you to use one. Another way that you can do them is to show a picture like this and pose to students, without counting, can you come up with a strategic way to figure out how many shoes there are in this picture? And just in a breakout room or in person, kids could work together and try to figure out how many shoes are in this shelf. And we don't need to go through this one right now, but I see that people are already trying to figure it out. I'm assuming you're doing some multiplication work, maybe some arrays, which I know is not 8th grade, but I think what's fun to hear is how kids are thinking about being strategic here. And they can share their thinking about okay, well, I did this, 3 times 9, and then multiplied that by 2, however they're doing it. So really fun. There's a huge bank of pictures to use for things like this. Another way to use them is just kind of how many whole watermelons would be made here, and how do you know, figure it out. How many eggs might there be in this stack? I really like them because as with a lot of the things we've mentioned, there, you know, there's no text here, there's nothing to read, but there's a lot of mathematical thinking that you can get at, and as kids kind of explain how they figured out, you know, how many shoes are in that stack, how many whole watermelons would be made from this in this picture, things like that. So we're going to share a couple links to some math picture talks if you want to use those later during the rehearsal time. But we're going to jump right to the next activity, which is which one doesn't belong. Give me a thumbs up if you've seen which one doesn't belong. It's been around for quite a while. It used to be primarily used in just like elementary spaces, but it is one of the best, and it can be used for all ages. So this is based on a book by Christopher Danielson called Which One Doesn't Belong. And as you see here, these are kind of the rules. You're going to see 4 images or numbers or shapes or graphs. You're going to decide which one doesn't belong and come up with a reason why. The difference here is that any of the choices, all of the choices can be the one that doesn't belong. So any of them can be correct as long as you have a justification and a valid reason. And a little twist that I've added here is that your only job isn't to come up with something. You're actually going to also have to listen to what your classmates say for the reason that something doesn't belong. And I'm going to give you a prompt of how to share that, because it's easy for me to just focus and be like, okay, I'm done. I found one that doesn't belong. But when Danita shares her reason, I want you to be like, ooh, I see what she's noticing, or I see what she's paying attention to, because that might unlock some other things for me. So we're going to start with a very easy one. Here are 4 shapes. In the chat, go ahead and say which one doesn't belong. I'm going to give you a frame here. Shape B doesn't belong because, shape C doesn't belong because, and I'm just going to give you a second. Take a look. And what I really want you to notice here is that any of the shapes can be the one that doesn't belong. So once you're done, you're not done. You can come up with a reason for another one, or a different reason for the one that you chose. Okay, so I see that Danita said D because it's the only one that's colored gray. So the rest of you, what I want you to think about is, of all the attributes of these shapes, what is she paying attention to? Can anyone unmute and say when Danita?
Color.
Okay, great.
I didn't focus on color. I was counting the sides. I'm like, ooh, hexagon, out.
Okay, great.
Everybody else, the triangle has 3. I like this color.
Awesome. So when Danita said that shape D didn't belong, she was noticing the color. Anybody else? What do we have? Shape B because it, Chrissy, shape B because it is not a triangle. Oh, so we know what a triangle is. So what is she noticing or paying attention to?
Sides.
Sure, the number of sides. And if you kind of build this structure in your class as like, I'm going to come up with a claim. Ooh, shape C has the only obtuse angle. Now we can all go, all right, when Charles said that I had an obtuse angle, what is he noticing or paying attention to?
Degree measurement of the angle.
Yeah,
I see lots of right angles.
Okay, so
we
have a lot of different attributes here. And what this gives, and I know we're not doing it well right now live, but it really gives space for the students that maybe hadn't come up with something to at least feel safe in that they can go, oh, I see, they were noticing this number of sides. I didn't think of that, or and feel free to kind of voice some of their thinking. Oh, Jessica's challenging that it's the only triangle with an obtuse angle, because the hexagon also has obtuse angles, which is great. And that will come up also in your class, which is kind of part of that SMP about constructing viable arguments and critiquing the reasoning. If there is something that comes up and someone says, oh, A, because it's an equilateral triangle, and we could be like, ooh, is it? Maybe that might not quite be what the kind of triangle, but things like that. It's a kind of a great opportunity to jump in, not only with academic language, but also to clarify some misconceptions and have kids kind of respectfully challenge each other. Not to mention that it's very easy to do. You project a picture, kids get talking, and what's really neat is that it kind of self-differentiates, because even if I've done one, I can still keep challenging myself to find a reason for all the other shapes. Also, this piece about listening to what other people are paying attention to gives students an opportunity to kind of reflect on and listen to what other people are saying before they share theirs.
I would love to hear if anybody has a reason for A.
I said it didn't belong because it was upside down.
Oh, and this is a great, so what is, who said that? I'm not sure who said that. What is?
Danita.
Danita, what do you mean by upside down?
Like the general orientation of the triangle, we like the point to be up, and this one is pointing down.
Okay, so what is Danita paying attention to? She kind of just said it, but.
Well, it's hard to tell if it's B, because how would you tell if B was upside down?
Ah, interesting. So maybe the orientation, but also the fact that it's resting on a vertice or on the point. So these are kind of some just time moments where you can say, like, kids will say, like, it's standing on the point or something, like, or the corner or something. And you can go, okay, we actually have a word for that that's associated with geometry. Resting on a point. Great. So there's a lot of directions that you can take this, and it's always very fun, like a puzzle. Here, 8th grade version. Ooh. Okay, so we're gonna do this one for real. Come up with a reason why one of the graphs doesn't belong. And we're gonna have someone share, and we're gonna do this as we would in a classroom. So when I pick one to share, I want us to be thinking about what they were noticing. But go ahead and come up with a reason for one of these. Okay, Gloria, can you say yours out loud? Oh, she might be having trouble. I'll say, Gloria says graph D has a negative, graph D doesn't belong because it has a negative slope. So what is she paying attention to? Or what is she noticing about the graphs?
That
Slope.
Yep. Yeah. She's noticing the slope. We have positive negative slope. Awesome. All right. Some other ones. Does someone else want to unmute and share a different one?
I had the same thing, but I don't know negative slope, but I think it's the same thing. A, B, and C are all slanting upward, in the upper quadrant, they're slanting to the right. But D in the upper quadrant, it's in the left quadrant.
Awesome. Thank you. So that's a great chance to talk about what does slope mean and how do we see it represented in these graphs. That's so cool. Because yeah, you're right. Maybe we don't have the language for it, or we're not sure, why do all of those go this way and this one goes this way? What does that mean about it? What are the kind of attributes of that line? Okay, anyone want to unmute and share another one? I've seen a lot of good ones in the...
I want to steal Nicole's, the one about the origin, because we got to talk about 0, 0 and the power of that. Thank you. I'll steal hers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nicole.
that's what I was saying. I was saying that graph B is the only one that's proportional because it goes to the origin.
Okay, so awesome. So when Nicole or Charles said that it's the only one that goes through the origin, what are they paying attention to?
The intercept?
Sure, the intercepts, maybe that it's proportional, that it might be that's a proportional relationship.
Maybe the ordered pairs, because it's on 0,
pairs.
0, the actual dots, the data points on the line.
Excellent. So as you can see, there is so much understanding that I can get about what you guys understand about these kinds of graphs before we've ever done a lesson on them or anything. It's just a really great kind of check-in. Jessica and I were looking at this one yesterday, and I think, what was the one, Jessica, that we were like having?
We were having a hard time with A, I think.
I think did anyone say A?
Well, one thing about A is it's the only one with a positive slope and a positive intercept.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
Nice.
Awesome. So positive slope, positive intercept. Mm-hmm. It's also the only one that has a negative x-intercept. Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I know you've probably seen kind of versions of Which One Doesn't Belong. It's a very, very powerful, very quick and easy tool to not only get kids talking, and I don't know if you felt it, but it's like, ooh, I want to come up with, can we come up with one for C? I don't even know. What could it be? And have kids kind of explain what they know about it. And whether or not they have the language to really articulate it, this is again one of those opportunities to jump in and say, it goes through the origin. What does that mean we know about this line? Or talking about X and Y intercepts or ordered pairs. It's just a great opportunity to kind of jump in with that kind of academic language. And
Solana, can I add? I also, although sometimes the instinct is to, and you can do this, have like a word wall or something like that. One of the things is that it's really nice to necessitate academic language. So instead of kids like guessing like off of a word wall, they try to describe something, like they say A because the place where it crosses is up higher, and then you can have an opportunity. What do you mean by the place where it crosses? And then you can introduce like, oh, you mean where it's intersecting, that's called an intercept, right? In other words, let them describe it any way they can, and then they see, oh, there's a word for that. That's so much more convenient than for me trying to describe it. And so that's called sometimes necessitating. Instead of them trying to just pick words randomly off of a word wall, they're trying to describe important features, and then they see that there's a real usefulness for having a specialized academic word. It just makes it easier to communicate. So I think that's another piece about this, and another way to do it is let the kids, use whatever words they want, because sometimes the other kids were like, what do you mean the place where it crosses? What crosses? Doesn't it cross twice? So how do you be clear? Or the
yeah.
middle?
And I think that also happens really organically if you have this follow-up question, because if you say something like, oh, B doesn't belong because it's the steepest or something like that, and you say, oh, they must be paying attention to something about the steepness of the line, which is slope. Like kids will kind of jump in to help articulate. And I think that's where there's so much power in activity, not only being a can you find all the reasons, but can you hear what other people are saying and then go, ooh, does that apply to other ones, and challenge them, make conjectures, and see if they're right. So there's a huge bank of these which we'll give you access to. What's great about them is they don't require a ton of prep, other than kind of anticipating some of the things that you were hoping maybe will be brought up, things like ordered pairs, coordinates, slope, quadrants, things like that, so that you can kind of look for those. All of the things that we share in these sessions can be done virtually, but they're also great they're the best when you go back in person. So here's just a few more. There's all different types of these. There's geometry ones, number ones, ratios, a whole bunch of different kinds. So we will share a link. Oh, now I'm interested in what D looked like again. But we just wanted to give you a chance, or should we skip this maybe, so we're a little bit behind and we can kind of reflect at the end. We always like to check in with you about like, what is something that you like about this? Anybody have questions about it? Just in a quick little 1-minute reflection about Which One Doesn't Belong, or picture talks.
I love the secondary question where you ask them to like actually listen to their colleague and then sort of kind of restate what the colleague was focusing on. Mm-hmm. That sort of really builds the vocabulary.
Thanks, Gloria. Yeah, it's a little tweak kind of for the traditional use of Which One Doesn't Belong that really kind of necessitates that listening to each other's thinking and talking about each other's thinking. Anybody else? Just to jump in on this little, how do you see this working with students? One of the things that I like to do as a classroom management kind of instructional move is put a thumb up if you have a reason why one of them doesn't belong, just so kids aren't like shouting out things or in the chat, and maybe I should have slowed that down a little bit, but like have something that everybody can usually come up with one thing that doesn't belong. Maybe if you have another one, you can keep, yeah, absolutely, Gloria. If you're doing this in a virtual space, kind of, you can unmute or use the chat, but maybe kind of signaling that you at least have one idea that you want to share is a great way to kind of keep it organized in your classroom. All right, with that, I'm going to pass this to Jessica. Thank you guys for participating in that one. I'm really excited to see if anyone looks at those more closely.
Yeah, so I was gonna go through 2 different activities with Stronger and Clearer. I'm gonna do one and then we'll take a break and then we'll come back and do the second one. And then we'll follow up with some more Desmos. And I know we've talked last time about the different math language routines or MLRs, and this 3 reads was MLR number 6, I think. And then we also talked about co-craft questions, which is MLR number 5. MLR number 1 is called Stronger and Clearer Each Time. So you can imagine just by that title that we're going to be doing some revising, that we're going to be strengthening our writing or our explanations over time and with each iteration. So for this piece, and actually this will occur after our little break, but you will need either a pen or pencil and a piece of paper, not for this piece right now, but definitely after the break. So if that is something that you'll need to grab during the break, please make sure to do that. So we're going to talk about this guy, Mr. Bongard. And Tiffany, I can't help but look at your name and think that your last name is Bongard, but I know you're missing the N. So I keep looking, I'm like, wait, her last name is Bongard, but very close. So Mr. Bongard was this Russian computer scientist who was interested in cognition and artificial intelligence. And he wrote this book in 1967 that was this collection of 100 problems that he was interested, like, could a computer figure out the differences between these images? Can humans do a better job? So he was kind of interested in that research. So here's the rule. You're going to see what kind of looks like a binder or like an open notebook. You're going to see 6 squares on the left-hand side and 6 squares on the right-hand side. And your job is basically to come up with a rule or property that works for all of the images on the left-hand side and none of the images on the right-hand side. So you're basically trying to describe, like, okay, all 6 of these have this thing in common that none of these other 6 have. Does that make sense? So like, all of these are red, all of these are blue. That's really basic, but that's basically how it works. So again, you're going to look at these collection of 6 images on the left, 6 images on the right, and you're going to try to come up with a rule or property that is true for everything on the left, but none on the right. And I'm going to say, normally I would do this in the class. I would ask students to give me like a secret signal, but because we don't have a lot of secrets when our cameras are on, that's a little tricky. You might invite students to send you a private message in the Zoom chat, however you want to do it. But I'll just give you like 30 seconds. Don't shout it out. Don't put it in the chat. Just think if you can come up with a rule or property that fits for these images. All right.
Sorry, what's the assignment again?
So looking at the 6 images on the left, can you come up with a rule or property that holds true for all 6 of these images and none of these 6 images on the right? Does somebody think that they might have a rule or property that would satisfy all 6 on the left but none on the right that they'd like to unmute and share? Give it a shot. Who's brave? Who's going to try it?
I have something, but I don't know like the words for it.
Give it a shot. Let's see if we can help.
All of the right side are swirling Like, I don't know how to say it.
Nicole, you're doing great.
But one swirls one way and one swirls the other way.
Perfect.
Clockwise, counterclockwise.
That is perfect. That is perfect.
Getting there.
Awesome. So one set is swirling one way, the other set is swirling the other way. Can anybody build on what Nicole has just shared?
Could you add left or right? Maybe directionality?
Okay, so we've got some ideas about directionality. Somebody else came off of mute. I missed it. Sorry.
So what are you asking? Because I think pretty much that answer, the asymmetry or the which way they spiral, pretty much sums it up. So
Okay.
what was your question?
Yeah, so I was just asking if anybody could build on that. And you know what, that brings up a good point, Charles. Nicole's not wrong, right? One of them does spiral in one direction and the other does spiral in another direction or the other direction. I think somebody threw out, and maybe it was even Nicole, like clockwise or counterclockwise. So let's use that idea. Do you think the ones on the left are clockwise or counterclockwise?
Clockwise.
Oh, we've got a debate on our hands. Is it clockwise or counterclockwise? Doesn't matter.
Clockwise.
Ooh, clockwise. Somebody's very passionate. I'm sorry, I can't see your face. Is it Chrissy?
Yes.
Chrissy says clockwise.
Do we go swirl in, out, or out, in? How do you start the swirl?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Ryan and Gloria, and I see Tiffany has come off mute. I think, yes, this is where we get to the bottom of it. It depends, right? If you start in the middle and start to spiral outwards, which direction are these ones going in on the left?
Clockwise.
Clockwise, right? Or if you start on the outside and you're working your way towards the middle of the spiral, then you could say that they're spiraling counterclockwise, right? So everybody was essentially correct in this case. But again, this is the beauty of this standard for mathematical practice number 6, attending to precision. And I think this also connects nicely to what Solana was talking about with the which one doesn't belong and the use of vocabulary. I love this quote, again from June Mark. Defining terms is important, but children, and to a lesser extent, even adults, rarely learn new words effectively from definitions. Any geometry teacher in the house will tell you that it is really ineffective to, like, at the beginning of the lesson, here's the definition of an equilateral triangle. Here's the definition, write it down, memorize it. Kids have no connection to why those vocabulary terms are important or like why they would even care. Virtually all vocabulary is acquired from use in context. Children build their own working definitions based on their initial experiences. Over time, as they hear and use words in other contexts, they refine their working definitions, making them more precise. So you could tell a student, you need to be more precise, and they probably wouldn't know what you mean because they don't know why that would be valuable. But in a case like this, in a Bondgard problem where it's like, I believe that that is clockwise. Oh, but I do see that you could also say that it's counterclockwise. I see why my precision in my language is important. I now know, like, okay, I'm going to be more precise. Here's another one. Any ideas?
Is it that they're concave? Oh, no.
Okay. Both Danita and Charles, it was a tie. Convex versus concave. Those are definitely terms that come up in geometry and math class, but like, it's rare that you would have, at least in my experience, you would even have high school geometry students look at this and be like, those ones are convex and those ones are concave. I've done these with middle school and high school kids, and they'll say things like the ones on the left are like, the ones on the right are like pushed in or they're sunken in somehow, right? They've been pinched or they've been like squeezed so that there's a part that's sunken in or caved in. And then it's like, ding, ding, ding. Yes, there's a word for that. So these are great to help build some of that vocabulary, but also I know, like, even calling back to earlier in our session with the use of a 3 reads, I know those are tricky at first. And even to have students use academic vocabulary, build academic vocabulary, or even construct a viable argument can be tricky at first. So using things like this, where it's kind of low stakes, it doesn't matter like how they did in the previous unit necessarily, we're building those problem solving muscles, we're building those muscles to help kids with their explaining and their oral and written communication. So these are a great resource. You can find them online, Vanguard problems, if you are interested. The beauty of it is that their answers are really tricky to find. So in terms of Googleability, you know, you can even throw one up there and say like, I don't actually know the answer. And, you know, even Patrick has come up with some on his own, and he's even, you know, grappled with particular Vanguard problems for like years. And, you know, it's like, I still don't know the answer. And that's the beauty of being a mathematician, is that you grapple with these problems over time and continue to build those muscles and build those understandings. So let's take a break. Let's come back at 4:03. Cell phone time. 4:03. We'll see you back here.
Go stretch.
Go stretch it out.
Look at those people stretching.
Yeah. All right, friends. Welcome back. Hopefully that was nice just to stretch your legs, take a little bio break, get what you need. We are going to jump in, and just a reminder, you'll need a pen or pencil and just a little piece of paper. It doesn't have to be like a full sheet of paper. You can just use a piece of scratch paper, is totally fine. But we're going to do a version of a stronger and clearer each time. You have a lot of different ways that you can use this. I've seen this done using Google Classroom, using Desmos, using Canvas, especially if your learning management system has some sort of like a discussion board or a place where students can post ideas and other students can respond. You can definitely do this in a virtual or online space. I'm going to ask you to write a first draft, and then I'm going to put you into a breakout room and another breakout room with one other person. So you'll get to chat with 2 other people. So the reason that I sort of kicked this off with a Vanguard problem is because I wanted you to see that we value revision. We value the opportunity to put out there some sort of a first draft and then get some feedback, have that collective discussion, and sort of build some understanding about like, okay, that is a little bit more precise, or that is a better way to say that. So the purpose of this, and this comes from the same document that we shared last time with the 3 reads and co-craft questions, but the purpose here is to provide a structured, interactive opportunity for students to revise and refine both their ideas and their verbal and written outputs. This routine also provides a purpose for students' conversation through the use of a discussion-worthy and iteration-worthy prompt. So I think that's important to call out, that I wouldn't just give students any prompt to use for stronger and clearer, because they are going to invest some time in writing a first draft, getting some feedback, giving some feedback. You want something that's a little bit chunkier than just like, I don't know, solve for X, where it's just like a list of steps, not a lot of really solid feedback that you can give or get there. Okay, so this actually comes from a unit in 8th grade around interpreting data. So this is squarely in your 8th grade content. And so here's the prompt. Sorry, I've got to move your faces so I can see all the text. Here we go. The prompt here is that we have a clothing store that keeps track of the average monthly temperature in degrees Celsius and coat sales in dollars. So I know that it's a little bit tricky to read, and I apologize up front. But along the x-axis here, we have temperature in degrees Celsius, and along the y-axis, we have coat sales in dollars. You can probably see the little ordered pairs here on the graph. So the question that I'd like you to write a first draft of, and this is what I need you to write on a piece of paper, would it make sense to use this trend to estimate the value of sales when the average monthly temperature is 60 degrees Celsius? Explain your reasoning. So I'll be honest, I actually pulled this item from like a collection of items. This was like one of the last questions. So some work had been done about like talking about trends and things like that. But if you think about this linear trend, would that be useful to estimate the value of sales when the average monthly temperature is 60 degrees Celsius? So I'm going to give you just a moment to write a first draft of your response to that question. Can you just give me a little thumbs up if you're finished? Okay. Let's do another thank you. Another 30 seconds. It's just a first draft. Thank you. All right. So here's how this is going to work. Over here on the left in the blue, I have the prompt and the question from the previous slide. Your instructions are on your own, please write a first draft. You did that. Awesome job. When you're finished, what I'd like you to do is just take that piece of paper and flip it over and set it to the side. Okay, I don't want you to read it. I don't want it to be distracting. What I'm going to ask you to do now is I'm going to place you into breakout rooms with one other person. And the reason that I've asked you to set your written explanation aside is this is what I want to avoid. I think that this is a good choice because, right, I don't want to see students just reading straight off of their paper, but also that doesn't mean that I expect them to have it memorized. This is just an opportunity for students to get their first thoughts down. And then now we're practicing that oral language of sharing our first drafts. So this is going to go quickly, but what I'd like you to do is share your first draft with your partner in your breakout room, and then your partner can give any feedback. I'm sorry, I do have a slide for this. Let me just skip ahead here. Here we go. So your partner can ask clarifying questions, they can give any sort of feedback, and then you'll switch roles. So if Solana and I were partners, I would sort of just say to her, you know, I think that this makes sense because blah, blah, blah. She would ask me any clarifying questions, and then she would read hers. I would provide any feedback or ask any questions. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome, thank you. So I have actually set this up to be pretty quick. You're gonna have 2 minutes in your breakout room, so roughly 1 minute per partner, and then 15-second countdown. So then you'll see like 15-second countdown before the rooms close and you come back to the main room. And then we're actually gonna do that one more time with a new partner. Okay, so I'm gonna open up the rooms. We'll see you back here in 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
So are both people speaking during that time or just one? Okay.
Both will, yep.
Thank you.
And Patrick and Solana, I put you in the same room so you don't have to leave if you don't want. Was that way too fast? Or was okay? It was okay? Oh, whew, good. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too crazy. Okay, so I'm gonna try to multitask here. I am going to recreate the breakout rooms for you, and hopefully you'll end up with a different partner. We'll see. And basically what you're going to do is exactly what you've just done, where you're gonna kind of restate your first draft, but now that you've been able to say it out loud to somebody, maybe you've gotten some feedback, been asked some clarifying questions, you know, feel free to incorporate some of that. But again, we're just not gonna like straight up read from our paper. So let me, just gotta move some things around here. I think that's good. And let me do this one.
Charles was alone.
I know. Charles, you got stuck with Patrick. All right, let's try this one. We'll see how it goes. I'll see you back here in 2 minutes, 15 seconds.
I was talking to myself, but that's something I'm used to.
The pups were giving you feedback.
Yeah, I was like, the dogs heard the draft. That's good.
Okay, let's see. Okay, forgive me. I know that those were really quick. Obviously, you could do those a little longer with students, but the point is that we want to sort of limit the time so that we're not kind of fumbling around and just like get to the point. Let's get it done. Let's get these read or shared and then get that feedback. So basically at this point, what I'm going to invite you to do is pick out your first draft. You can revisit it there, reread it. And I'd like you to revise it actually based on the feedback that you gave and received in the 2 iterations of breakout rooms. So in this case, when we revise, I don't want you to erase or cross out. Keep that record of your first draft. We're showing that growth and documenting our thinking are really positive in a math class. So please start a new draft by using the feedback that you got on your first draft, but just write a second version under the original. Would anybody be willing to come off of mute and read? I'll give you another 30 seconds, but in 30 seconds, if you're comfortable, to come off of mute and read your revised draft. Would anybody be willing to come off of mute and read their revised draft to the group?
I can do that.
Awesome, thank you so much.
I said no because the sales are clearly trending to zero long before 60 degrees Celsius is reached, and negative sales have no meaning in this context.
Okay, thank you. And Charles, I'm curious if you can share with us, did you get any feedback? I know in the first round you were by yourself, but was there feedback that you found useful to help you revise?
Yes, but the feedback was that my partner was in total agreement with me. So it was positive feedback. And so I found myself changing very little from the first answer.
Okay, great. Thank you. Would anybody like to share their second draft with the group? Come off of mute and read their second draft.
Well, I put that I still have the same thought, but after talking with my first partner, they were saying like maybe we could have used a different kind of graph, like a bar graph in a sense, where like you would have like the bar go up for the positive and then go dip down in the negative side. So now I'm curious to see like what a graph of that would look like, and if it would help me persuade me to change my mind that this is not a good graph already.
Okay. Thank you. So what I love about this activity is that the students become sort of the experts, and trust me, teaching high school, even after having been in school for 8+ years, students are not really accustomed to giving and receiving feedback from their peers. So making sure that it is a structured activity, that you're clear about your expectations, even maybe starting with some sentence frames or sentence starters can be really useful so that students aren't feeling like kind of lost in that portion of the activity, I think could also be really beneficial. But I'm curious if you have thoughts about either the use of bond guard problems or the stronger and clearer piece that you would like to share as sort of a moment for debriefing and brainstorming. Danita, I wasn't sure if that was a hand up, sorry. Nicole, I think you have a hand up.
I may, because I don't know, I feel like students may just kind of plateau and not, really try to give a better response. I would probably like each time give them like a vocabulary word that they have to throw in there. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't go as far as like a sentence frame, but just something like, okay, well, you may have talked about how, there were trends, like let's talk about associate, like use the term association.
Sure. Yeah, so encouraging the use of academic vocabulary in a context. Great.
I wrote in the chat maybe a Jamboard so they can commit to a sentence or a statement, and then maybe they can peek at other people's and not just the one person that they're in the breakout room with. So everybody's got to commit, write their name and commit to something that we can all see.
I like that idea of even having it sort of public. And that's another use of like a Google Classroom platform or a Canvas discussion board or things like that, where it is public. It does sort of raise the game a little bit. If students are feeling a little bit anxious, like, ooh, but I know that other people can see this and that makes me scared, right? So like even starting with something like this where it's private and then they can share, to get feedback on something that isn't public,
or maybe make it anonymous then.
Sure, but definitely can do and make things anonymous. Absolutely.
But then at the end, they have to commit with their name.
That's true.
I need something different.
And now I own this. This is my statement. Any other thoughts or feedback, brainstorm ideas, things you like?
I think for me personally, I would have to have like a handout with peer review questions for them because
Sure.
I don't know. I haven't seen many of my kids question other students in the classroom with their thinking. So like to start it off, I would have to just have those question banks so that the students can be like, okay, I hear what you're saying, and then reiterate what they're saying and then ask a clarifying question so that it can progress.
Absolutely. And I think also to be clear about the purpose of the revision, right? It's not like, okay, now head out and you have to defend your thinking and you're trying to convince a skeptic, right? Like some of that can seem kind of extreme, but like, it's possible that most of your students might have some similar thinking. So it's like, if you and I are paired together and we sort of wrote the same thing, it's like, okay, what feedback do I give you? But it can, I love the idea of using some sort of sentence frame or setting that expectation of like, I agree with you because, or I understood what you said by this, but I don't understand what you mean by this, right? So like even just kind of paring it down into individual parts of their writing is, I think, a great place to start also.
Well, just one other thing we came up with in our group is we figured out that 60 degrees Celsius was 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And we agreed we didn't need a trend line to know that nobody's buying coats then.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. I like it. Awesome. Well, hopefully even just this structure of like peer-to-peer interactions and sharing their thinking and their writing can be something that you can take away into the next month or so. So we're going to close with an activity called Polygraph. And I'm wondering if anybody in the group ever played the game Guess Who? Yeah? Okay, cool. Maybe, yes, awesome. So this will look familiar. If you're not familiar with the game Guess Who, don't worry about that. Basically, this will be an array of 16 images, and you will be asked to either be the guesser or the chooser of one of those images. So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms with one other person, and this is going to be really important. And Solana and I, as we were planning our activity today, she called out something that we find very valuable when we're in person, which we were just having to make sure that we could recreate in the virtual space. And that is when you have students engage in like a marble slides activity from Desmos, if you've done that, or a polygraph activity, which is what we're going to do now, having one device per 2 students is a game changer. If you have one-to-one, it really just allows students to sit quietly and like be ignored, not really engage. And so by having 2 students per device, they're now collaborating on what question should we ask? What number should we put there? Those sorts of interactions are really nice to create for your students, which is why when we put you into breakout rooms, the person with the longest hair is going to click on the link for the Desmos. So between the 2 of you, we only want one of you to log into the Desmos activity. Okay, so I just want to make sure that that's clear. When you join your breakout room, determine who has the longest hair, and then that person will be the person to join the Desmos activity, but not the other person. All right, so once the person with the longest hair has been determined and they've opened up the Desmos activity, go ahead and share your screen. And as a pair, you will become either the ones responsible for choosing a shape or guessing the shape that has been chosen by another pair. If you are the chooser, and what I mean by that is you're going to see 16 images and you're going to click on one that you like. If you are the chooser, you're going to click on that shape and then answer the questions that are posed by the pair that is the guesser. If you're the guesser, you are going to ask yes or no questions to help you determine which shape of the 16 has been chosen. Does that sort of make sense? Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, it might, at the very beginning when you enter the student code, or when you enter as a student, it will give you like a tutorial that will kind of look like Guess Who, to be like, remember how you ask questions to figure out Guess Who, just in case you don't know. So you can just kind of click through that once you're in there. But I think they will have to click this link in the chat before they go into their breakout rooms, yes?
Actually, the chat carries into the breakout rooms. Yeah, so we'll drop it into the chat, then you'll join the breakout room, and then once you've figured out, so don't everybody click on that yet.
Oh,
only yeah, it has to be there before they leave, but just don't join it until you've determined who between you and your partner has the longest hair. And I'm just making sure that the breakout rooms have 2 in them. All right, so we'll come back in about 5 minutes and we'll see how this goes. Happy polygraphing. I know that was probably a little crazy, and the onboarding piece alone was probably like, what are we doing? Why do I have to guess a person? But this is why it's really important that only one of you joined, because what Polygraph does is that it actually partners you up with somebody. So here is the dashboard that I get to see, and I get to see then who is partnered with whom. So I can see, for example, that Tiffany and her partner are partnered up with PC and their partner, and that they have asked these 2 questions. So if whoever was PC's partner also had logged in, then all of a sudden they're trying to match that person with another partner, and then it's like sitting idle. So I apologize for that. Maybe it was a bit lofty for us to try to aim for that, but I think it's also good that you have somebody to go through this with. What I do want to just show you briefly, I've done this exact polygraph with middle and high school students, and here are some of the questions that they came up with. Is your shape white? Does your shape have a blue outline? Is it in the bottom right corner? Is it in the top left corner? So, spoiler, all of the shapes are white and all of them have a blue outline. So, not a great question to start with. Similarly,
all of them are hexagons because
all of them are hexagons. So by asking, is your shape a hexagon or does it have 6 sides? Maybe not a great question. Also, when you look at the array of 4x4 or 16 images, if I am the challenger against you, my 16 images are not organized in the same way. So the shape that you have in the top left-hand corner on your screen is not necessarily the same shape that I have in the top left-hand corner on my screen. So good luck, kiddo, if that's like your strategy to try to like outsmart the, I'm just gonna find the position. And similarly, you know, I love these questions about like, does your shape, is it a triangle shape? Is it an arrow shape? Now, if you think about this, in theory, we have 16 items. So a good question would be one that can cut the field in half. So we whittle it down from 16 to 8, and then with another question from 8 to 4, and then from 4 to 2, and then from 2 to 1, right? So we're looking at about a 4-question series. Now you might think like, whoa, this kid did it in 2. But these only came to be kind of good questions because the answer was yes. So it was like, cool, I can eliminate all these things. But also like, does he have hair? I think maybe it was a carryover from the warm up. I don't know. I'm going to give the kid the benefit of the doubt there. But, you know, does it look like an animal? I don't know. Do you think that like, if you look at this shape, would you describe it as looking like an animal? I don't know. Like that's kind of a judgment call. So what I was noticing, we had a few questions come in, but like, you know, asking about is it concave? Does it have a right angle? I think Nicole had even mentioned with the stronger and clearer activity, throwing in some of that academic vocabulary. So like if your student's dashboard looks like this, where you're not seeing a ton of academic vocabulary, it can be an opportunity to just say, okay, pause, time out. I want to see, ask about the angles, ask about the, you know, convex or concave, encourage them to, to be using some of that academic vocabulary.
So ultimately, is the goal of this for the students to do an efficient questioning strategy? What basically they're doing is a binary search.
Yeah.
Half each time. So the idea is for them to optimize their strategy so they can guess it no more than 4.
I would say that, yes, that is sort of the ultimate goal, right? That they should be able to answer it in 4 questions and be strategic about then what questions they do ask so that they are eliminating as many shapes as possible, right?
I'll mention that even in our group, we did ask, does your shape have a right angle? And that cut us in half. And then my partner and I were discussing, he mentioned, is it pointing to the right or to the left? And I asked, is what pointing to the right or to the left? And he said, the right angle. Is it open to the left or the right? And that helped us the next like narrowing down, except for one of them was like not quite right or left, but kind of that conversation that you have. And you can certainly do this just with students by themselves. But the conversation that we had actually helped us come up with a better question to kind of narrow it down.
So I'm just being mindful of time, and I know that we wanted to give you guys time to practice and sort of chat with colleagues about what we've shared with you today, between the which one doesn't belong and the picture or number talks, the stronger and clearer each time, Bondguard problems, polygraph, all that good stuff. I'm wondering if this would be a good time to break into those groups, or would you like to spend maybe 5 more minutes in the polygraph space? It sort of has to be everybody does the same thing, because polygraph would just be kind of, although I do have a second polygraph activity that I could set up for you.
I'd like to try the polygraph again because it didn't quite work out the first time, but that's me.
Okay. And actually what we can do is we can forget the partner thing, and just, if you want to join the polygraph activity, you can, and then we can go from there. So maybe let's do that. Okay, so this one is on rigid transformations. So this one is a little bit more grade appropriate for 8th grade. I think, sorry, I lost my chat. I don't know where my chat is, but.
They told us to skip that chapter this year.
Okay, great. Well, let's see how you do anyway.
All right.
Okay, so yes, Solana has dropped that. Drop that into the chat. And let's try it. Just try it on your own. Jump into that polygraph. Let's see. Feel free to skip the tutorial. That's an important one. So when you click on the link, welcome, go. You
Yes.
can, right up here, skip the practice round. Okay, so go ahead and skip that. I'm just gonna see if I got joined. Oh, I did.
You should play.
Okay, game on, friends. Okay, it's so sad that you're all on mute, but I think we've mentioned that this is the most magical sound of any classroom where it's like everybody's working on the Desmos activity and the teacher hits pause and the kids go, no! So hopefully you uttered something like that. And I hope that that actually gave you a little bit of a taste of what the activity can be like. And you can sort of see how it could be valuable to have students working together. Like I found it was a very different experience for me to have to come up with questions on my own, or maybe for you, if you had chosen the picture, like to have to answer the questions on your own, to interpret, like, I don't know, how do I answer this? Is this a yes or a no? So lots of good stuff there. Full disclosure, I was playing as the person to guess, and I guessed wrong. So I haven't gotten to the bottom of it, Sandra. I'm gonna look back at the questions. Maybe I need to ask better questions. But
who determines who asks the questions and who clicks on the shape?
Great question. So it is random. So like after you go through one cycle, then usually you'll get an opportunity to look at some of these questions. So like ask a question to help you figure out the difference between these two cards. So it's a good little thing to practice your questioning. And then it'll take you back to, okay, it'll partner you up. Now, there is a chance that you're always the person that gets to pick the shape, or that you're always the person that gets to ask the questions, but I think it is pretty balanced.
Yeah,
So
it scrambles it up. And I just wanted to also mention the button at the bottom left that says anonymize. Sometimes if your students are nervous because, oh my gosh, I'm playing against Jessica, and like, you can anonymize them so that they see the names of mathematicians instead of their classmates. So that I just wanted to call that out as a way that kind of makes it a little bit safer, so they don't know who's playing who.
I have a question.
Thing, oh yeah, go
How
ahead.
do you handle when a student, perhaps, the person who has pick the shape, what happens if they give you an incorrect response by mistake?
Great question. And it happens a lot, right? I mean, students, especially when the answer is no, and maybe like, oh shoot, how do I translate this, or no pun intended, to like, how do I interpret it? How do I respond? I think it's just an opportunity to, like, you as the teacher get to see the questions in sequence. And so if you even see like, hey, wait, or, maybe I want to challenge, like, hey, I think that I picked correctly based on the answers, just kind of establishing that norm and expectation that students can come to you, or say like an open dialogue with their partner. Hey, can we go over those questions? Like maybe I misinterpreted, or maybe I should have asked a better question. Just to, again, kind of normalize that dialogue back and forth.
And also it's a great kind of just-in-time support of, like, as the teacher, I can see all the questions that people are asking and answering. And if I notice like, oh, everybody is saying this, I can pause it and say, all right, everybody, let's just jump back and make sure, do we all know what a translate, whatever this is? Just, okay, now I'll let you go play. Just in the moment, giving that support, because if they're just sitting there asking non-useful questions, it's not a super fun activity. So it's a really great way, and this is something that we can support with if Desmos is new to you, showing you what this teacher dashboard looks like, because you can see everything that everyone's asking. And if they're just sitting there stuck, maybe they might need a little something.
Thank you. It's just like trying to figure out the right number of black and white pegs to put in a game of Mastermind.
Nice.
Oh, I love Mastermind.
All right, so we're going to open it up for some rehearsal time. I'm going to just create some breakout rooms, and they will be, sorry, let me recreate. Let's see, we've got number picture talks. We've got which one doesn't belong. We've got stronger and clearer.
While Jessica's making the rooms, I just dropped the resource doc that's in there. So when she opens the breakout rooms, you can join those and then click links to look at which one doesn't belong activities, to look at picture talks, to look at Desmos stuff. And we can join any of those rooms to support if you have any questions, or if you just want to click through and kind of explore those resources, that's great too.
Absolutely. So I'm going to open the breakout rooms for 10 minutes, and the choices are, we've got number and picture talks, which one doesn't belong, stronger and clearer, Bondguard problems, and polygraph. So feel free to self-select. If it doesn't give you the option to self-select, just let me know and I'm happy to place you in a room. And again, we'll come back in about 10 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone. Before we close out for the evening, we just wanted to share with you a request that we have prior or between now and our last session in May. So Patrick, Solana, and I have been involved in the last few years with writing mathematics assessments. We helped Smarter Balanced a few years ago write some of their new and revised performance tasks. And it's an area that we're finding actually a lot of teachers would like support in. And so we have a small, quick, very short little performance task. I think it's literally 2 questions. One that's in like a, who's the faster runner, and students have to pick. And then the second question is explain how you know. And so this is totally appropriate for 8th graders. If you teach other grades and other courses and you would like to ask those students to do that, by all means, go for it. Solana is going to put the link in the chat. So please make sure to grab that, but also it is linked in your agenda. So just be mindful of that. So just a few like FAQs, how long does this take? No more than 10 minutes. If you want to do it synchronously, great. If you want to do it asynchronously, great. But we just ask that you give this or carve out some time for your students to do this between now and our final session. Are students allowed to use calculators? Yep, no problem, not to worry. In terms of pre-teaching or any sort of front loading, we recommend and don't find it actually necessary for you to do any sort of pre-teaching because it is accessible for your 8th and 7th grade students if you're going to give it to 7th graders. And then we're going to collect those responses through a Google form. That's what the link is for. If you have any questions about accessing those responses before our May session, just email one of us. But they're all going to just be collected in a single spreadsheet. So we're going to be reviewing those responses during the last session using a framework that we think that actually can really help students understand what makes a strong mathematical explanation. So today has been all about that oral and written communication. And next time will be sort of like, how do you write a strong mathematical argument or explanation? And so we just ask that you give that to your students between now and May. Are there any questions about that? Okay, you can always email us if you have questions that come up. But we covered a lot of ground today, lots of cool technology applications, good instructional resources and strategies, and then also covered a lot of different 8th grade content that maybe we haven't necessarily covered in the past. These are those, I always forget the name of it, guideposts from the district that we just like to call out and celebrate all of the amazing work that you guys are doing and that we've addressed in our session today. So, you know, we're hitting some of these big ones and then also lots of good content connections as well. Just a reminder, our last session is going to be on May 6th. We will do a 4 o'clock start time. Is that right? Is that what we said? I want to make sure I get this right. Okay, 4 o'clock start time. So if you're interested in joining us on that Thursday, we're just going to push back the start time to 4 o'clock. And then if you would prefer to join us on a Saturday, by all means, you can. It is a repeat of the same session as the 6th, but we just start at 9 o'clock on the Saturday session. We're going to offer a 1-hour office hour check-in session on April 29th at 3:30. Feroza will send out an email with a link for that if you are interested in joining. She'll also send out an email with both agendas. So somebody had asked earlier in the chat if the Zoom link was the same for the Thursday and the Saturday session, and it is not. So I will just make sure that when Feroza sends out the the links that she sends both at the same time so that you can decide which one at that point. Any questions about our final session? Cool, cool, cool. Don't forget to sign out. And as always, we have an end of session survey. I know that one of those is, maybe more important for you because it means you get paid, but one of those is more important for us because we just really appreciate and value your feedback. So if you don't mind taking the time to complete those, we really appreciate that. And as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your perseverance in this crazy time of heading back into hybrid and in-person teaching. We are here for you if you have questions or need support, and we'll be hanging out for the next 10 minutes or so if you do have questions or want to chat or want to go over anything. But thanks for being here.
Thanks, everybody.